Thank you. We're going to call the meeting to order of the Walker Planning Commission, June 2nd, 2021. First item is to call the meeting to order. Second, we'll review the minutes from the May 19, 2021 Planning Commission meeting. Any comments, corrections?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion by Scott, supported by Joe to approve the minutes as submitted. Anyone that's in opposition to that, indicate by saying aye. There being none, stand approved. Thank you. Next item is general public comment. This is an opportunity for community members to come forward on non-agenda items to provide some perspective on issues, concerns that they have. Anyone here that would like to offer that? Okay, we have no takers. Jason, do we have anybody online? No, okay, all right. And we'll move into the first agenda item with regard to reviews. This is case number 21-018, site plan review involving the Kingsbury Sanitary Sewer Lift Station. And Tricia, hand it over to you if you can provide an introduction to the project, please, as the planning director.
This is a fairly straightforward project. It's borderline courtesy site plan review because the lift station is obviously an essential public service for sanitary sewer services. So the action requested by the Planning Commission tonight is to review the site plan for the new Kingsbury Sanitary Sewer Lift Station and to provide an approval with or without conditions, denial, or tabling of the request. So again, this is a site plan review, and there are two parcels that are associated with this lift station location at 727 North Center Drive and 740 Greenridge Drive. And the general location of the project site is you can access it off Kingsbury Street, where there is an easement that goes over the North Center Drive parcel, and it is east of the Alpine Avenue Kingsbury Street intersection. And we have Dan Westenburg from Progressive AE here with us to represent the utility owner, City of Grand Rapids, and Chuck Schroeder. So first, just the general location. I heard a couple people saying that they've never even driven down Kingsbury until now. So Kingsbury is a small subdivision off Alpine Avenue, right near Target and the Greenridge Shopping Center. And if you follow Kingsbury all the way down to the end, there's a little gate there and some bollards. And that's where the access drive takes you into the actual lift station, and it cuts through this parcel right here. So just a closer look at where this is. You've got this creek running through here, and then access drive here, and here is the little lift station. So it's my understanding that the lift station, the existing one, will continue to operate until additional capacity is needed. And so the new lift station will be built now, and then they will switch over once once the other one reaches capacity. And Dan, if I'm way off on that, please correct me. Okay, decommissioned. That's a key word that I was missing here. So just a little bit of a background. In 2004, the English Hills Golf Course was approved for what we know now as the Pulte Plan. It was a large mixed-use development proposed for the English Hills Golf Course. So that was approved, but then it never came to fruition. And that particular plan with the amount of users that would need sanitary sewer services sort of prompted the need to construct a new lift station. So it's sort of been in design mode for quite a few years now. And so the new lift station would provide at least a 50% increase in capacity for sewer service. So again, this issue was revisited during the PASP review for the English Hills Golf Course for the multifamily development. So this is that approval is the development that is prompting the need to get the ball rolling on the actual construction of this new lift station. And so Dan provided a few photos of what this new one would look like, and this is an existing station on Bird Avenue. I'm not totally sure where Bird Avenue is. I would assume somewhere in Grand Rapids.
Yes, Bird Avenue is near Robinette.
Okay. Yep.
This is also great. But there are also examples at 161 Vista Drive. You will make on that one. Or basically look the same. Some of the colors can be
So again, straightforward request. My recommendation is that the Planning Commission grant site plan approval for the new Kingsbury lift station located at 727 North Center Drive and 740 Greenridge Drive as proposed. And in place of Scott Connors, I can go through some of his comments. He essentially mentions that most of the same items I have. He indicates that the engineering department has been actively involved in the scoping and design of the enhancement under the administration of our partners at the City of Grand Rapids, and that engineering staff is comfortable with the plans as proposed.
Okay, thank you, Tricia. Any comments or questions for Tricia on this project? Any comments from our friend from the city of Grand Rapids on this project beyond what we've discussed thus far?
I came here to provide clarity for questions.
Okay. Any questions?
Ready for a motion? I have one question. Does it generate any more noise?
Well, actually, less noise. The only difference with the new old one has an external generator that is going to be relocated inside the control building. The exhaust cable that's going to be out that has sound. So it's going to be a lot less noisy. What's currently out there is a sleeper opportunity to utilize the existing generator for issue. There is a portable.
Joe, do you have a?
I'm not an engineer. I'm not, but a lift station is so when you flush your toilet, it eventually goes to the sewage disposal, right? So in the land not being level, we have to have lift stations. So what's in there? A bunch of pumps and stuff, or what happens in there?
You want me to come up?
Yeah,
So if you can't serve the area by gravity sewer, which doesn't need a lift station, then you need to provide a lift station, and it all gets collected in a wet well. There's a series of pipes that get collected in a wet well. Once it gets to a certain level, there's two pumps that there's a lead and a lag pump. They oscillate back and forth between when running, and then that just basically pumps it up to a higher elevation. This project is actually the second part of a phase project that was started back in 2009 in Springbrook and Greenridge. Force main and the gravity sewer was upsized to in anticipation of this coming in.
So how high can you lift it up? I mean, just endless, how big the pump is?
It depends on how big the pump is. For this particular one with the dynamic head and the static head, it raises about 92 feet.
And what happens when these fail? I mean, is that, or they don't fail, or is that just an embarrassing question?
Well, it's not an embarrassing question, and I appreciate the question. Because there's two pumps, if one of them should fail, the other pump is identical to the one that would need to have maintenance on it. And that's the redundancy that's built in for pumping the sewage to make sure that it goes through the higher elevation and it doesn't flood basements. Then there's electric line power that powers the station. If there should have to be a drop in power, then there's an automatic transfer switch with a dedicated gas powered generator that will fire up and run the station. It's called line power.
Thank you.
All right, well then, I will make a motion for case 21-018 to approve the site plan for the new Kingsbury lift station in accordance with the plan set dated 5/6/2021, located at 727 North Center Drive and 740 Greenridge Drive as proposed.
Support. Motion by Steve, supported by Jason to approve the project as submitted. Tricia, if you could go through a roll call vote, please. Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Pat,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan.
Joe, thank you for asking the question we all were afraid to ask.
I live across the street from one, I know what
Okay, the second item is, this is a public hearing. This is for a final area site plan amendment and special exception permit involving Stan's Tacos, formerly known as Stan Diego, and for outdoor service and seating area. Again, Tricia, if you, as the planning director, could introduce the project.
Yes. Every time, okay, here we go. I don't know why I have such an issue with sharing my screen. Okay. So as Terry mentioned, we have Stan's Tacos with us tonight, formerly known as Stan Diego. The photo on the first slide here is the old facade. I was actually just there today and saw that the new facade is done. The new signage is up, and it's a nice beachy teal color. So again, this is a final area site plan amendment and special exception use request. The Planning Commission is being asked to review the final area site plan and set special exception use for request for a 486 square foot patio for outdoor seating and service for Stan's Tacos, and to provide an approval with or without conditions, denial, or tabling of the request. So again, this is at 355 Wilson. The lot size is 1.44 acres. And the zoning district is the Standale Crossings commercial planned unit development. Future land use designation of this parcel is mixed use. And the community character designation is urban corridor within the Standale neighborhood cluster. And the general location is on the east not the east-west, but on the west side of Wilson Avenue, just south of the Wilson Avenue and Lake Michigan Drive intersection. And I believe we have Rick Pulaski. Are you speaking to the, okay. So we had been working with Dustin Core of Nederveld and Associates, and Rick Pulaski is here in his place to answer any questions. And then we also have Meritage Hospitality and, forgive me, Anna. So Anna is here with Meritage Hospitality, and they are the owner of the property. So a little peek here at the site plan. This is part of the, this parcel here is part of that Meyer PUD, otherwise known as Standale Crossings. The proposed patio area is highlighted here in blue. And the applicant provided us with a couple of elevation drawings so that we could see what this little patio is going to look like. And they show their new facade colors here, string lighting, and the fence. So quick summary of the improvements here. The patio is proposed to have 36 additional seats. They are, as I mentioned, proposing, or they already have, new signage and a new facade for the building. They are also proposing a fence enclosure on a raised patio. They're also proposing some string lighting. And they've mentioned that they would add some decorative potted vegetation. So the special exception use request, as you know from the zoning ordinance section, there are several standards which need to be all met in order for the special exception use to be granted. Going through the site plan and the proposed use, essentially I've found that all of the standards for special exception use approval can be met or are met. So when we talk about no detriment, we're talking about, let's say this use was adjacent to a residential community and they had live music outside. That could be a question as to whether or not it would pose any detriment. This particular use is surrounded by all commercial uses. So it is compatible, outdoor seating area is compatible with the zoning district that it's in. Use will not impair or diminish property values, and there's no adverse impact on the environment. This patio is being proposed within the existing parking lot. And it's, so no additional impervious surfaces will be added for the patio. The use will not impede on the normal orderly development and improvement of the surrounding property. We haven't found that that would happen. Again, it's taking up a couple of ADA spaces, but we've had the building inspector confirm that there's still enough ADA spaces on the site to satisfy that requirement for the building code. Adequate utilities are existing, and the use conforms to all applicable zoning regulations and laws. So it is my recommendation that the Planning Commission grant the final area site plan amendment and special exception use permit for the outdoor service and seating area for Stan's Tacos located at 355 Wilson Northwest, subject to the following one condition and based on the findings listed in the model motion that I provided you with. So the one condition being that the applicant shall submit one set of sealed civil drawings prior to the issuance of a building permit. And I have a feeling that after a little bit of discussion on barrier for within the parking lot, we may have another condition to add.
Were there any comments that Scott had in addition to that? I think,
So
you.
Scott had a couple of comments, and this is where this additional condition might be coming from. So he just mentions that this is, it's within the front parking lot. He says we will defer any discussion of parking requirements to the planning director, and the interaction of dining with parking and vehicular movements is the only one concern for engineering. So that's the one that I would assume we would have a little bit of discussion on. And if there are any added conditions, then we can put those in the record.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Any comments or questions for Tricia? You mentioned the raised platform. What, and maybe well, we can ask that of the applicant as it goes through.
Yeah, that would be a good question for Rick.
All right.
Can you press the button on the mic? There you go.
Okay, again, Rick Pulaski at Nederveld. We're the planner and engineer for this. Couple things in answer to the first question. It's a kind of a raised platform, but not raised by like 3 feet. It's curb height. So that curb that goes around there is just a continuous height that goes all the way around. I want to give a little bit of differentiation there between the height of where people are sitting and where the height of people are driving, and that helps to achieve that. It's a, in our opinion, and of course we're biased, but our opinion, taking a couple of parking spaces to, in a sense, soften up that area, kind of bring it alive with more than just cars being parked right there is a good use for it. If you want to look at a similar use, you don't have to go too very far. You just travel to the south side of the building, where there's a very similar little patio area that gives outdoor dining for the Big B folks. But we think with the addition that Stan's is doing, going to be kind of a neater thing with the decorative lights that go across it and putting the fencing up, and should be a nice addition to the area and kind of soften things up a little bit.
Any comments, questions?
I have no problem with this plan other than the northeast corner sticks right out in the parking lot. People turning, trucks turning, or something, in my opinion, could hit that, and the fence you have proposed wouldn't stop anything, and the curb wouldn't stop anything. I would, I don't know if I'm recommending this or I'm suggesting it, but like three 10-mile-an-hour bollards right around the corner there, and then one on the south edge, right where the cars are turning into for pickup, might prevent future damage or injury. It's just an idea. I'm open to discuss it. It's just a concern. So.
I agree, Tyler. I was out there and I looked at that. If you look at that cement that comes out, it's scraped to crap because cars hitting it, either coming around the corner or backing up into it as they're coming out of the parking spot. So it gets hit all the time. So it's got to have something there to kind of help soften the blow. If somebody's sitting there eating dinner, you want a car backing into them or coming around the corner and catching that curb. So I agree. There's got to be something a little bit more substantial.
Tricia, can you go into a Google image that shows the Big B site? I think they've done a good job with the rounding of it, and then pulling the fence a little bit back into the concrete a little bit, which we'd be willing to do that too. And I don't think no problem with putting up a bollard or 2 or 3. Yep, we could do whatever you're saying or work it out with staff either way.
I'd say work it out. I'd say work it out with
It's not
staff. I'm suggesting 3 on the one corner, 1 on the other. It could be 2 and 1, or 1 and 1 just to keep things.
Yeah.
If it's only gonna be 1 and 1, you might want to put a little bit more than a 10-mile-an-hour one. You might want to.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. No, not a bad thought. And that's an easy fix.
Any other comments, questions?
Well, I agree with him. I can't live without having a Bigby every morning, so I'm constantly driving around there and they really back up. They back up, I'm sitting back in line, they come in from both sides and I like the idea, I like the concept. I think it's in a good place. Just of going around the corner. I think that's something maybe you can work out.
Yeah, I believe this was
Oh, it is a public.
noted at a public hearing. So do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion by Tyler, supported by Steve to open the public hearing. Anybody in opposition to that? Public hearing is open. Any comments from the audience? Jason, anybody online anymore as well? Okay.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion by Tyler, supported by Steve to close the public hearing. Anybody in opposition to that? Public hearing's closed. Thank you. Any other comments? We have a motion.
Just in regards to we're also kind of approving the colors here too, right? On the outside, because they're changing the color on that. And originally there's a few of us that are here when this thing was originally built. And that corner was changed in terms of the color back when it was the goose and then, to the San Diego and that sort of stuff. I just want to make sure everybody realizes that we're approving kind of another color change on this corner too. I happen to think it's fine. It's nice. It's catchy. But it's definitely something we should be aware of that. I think at one point it was changed without us kind of knowing about it. And then it's evolved a few times into this. So that was my only comment there. I like it.
All right, do we have a motion?
That's fine.
I could do it, Steve. Never.
No, you're. No, I took the easy. All right, for case 21-017, I will make a motion to approve the final area site plan amendment and special exception use permit for the outdoor service and seating area for Stan's Tacos located at 355 Wilson Avenue Northwest, subject to the following two conditions. One, the applicant shall submit one set of sealed civil plans prior to the issuance of a building permit. Number two, the applicant will review with staff safety improvements around the exterior of the outdoor seating area for the pedestrians from traffic. Findings of fact from section 94-2137E. The final area site plan conforms to the current and proposed City of Walker master plan. The final area site plan is in compliance with the approved Standale Crossing CPUD preliminary area site plan. The plan complements existing uses in the area. Findings of fact from section 94-250, standards for approval of special exception uses or unique uses. The establishment, maintenance, location, or operation of this use will not be detrimental to or endanger the public. The use is compatible with the intent of the zoning district and will not change the essential character of the surrounding area. The use will not be injurious to the use or enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes permitted, will not substantially diminish or impair property values within the area, and will not result in any significant adverse impact on the natural environment. The establishment, maintenance, location, or operation of the use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding property for uses permitted in that district. Adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary services or facilities have been or will be provided such that the use will not place demands on public services or facilities in excess of capacity. The use will, in all other respects, conform to the applicable regulations of the zoning district in which it is located, conditions imposed on approval and all other applicable provisions of law, ordinance, or statute.
Support.
Motion by Steve, supported by Tyler to approve with conditions the proposal. Any comments, questions about the motion? There being none, Tricia, if you could please call the roll, please.
Terry,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Pat,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Project is approved. Next item, likewise, is a public hearing. This involves a site plan review and special exception use review for Tommy's Express Car Wash proposed at 438 Wilson Avenue Northwest. Just to change things up a little bit, we'll have the applicant provide his presentation first, and then we'll proceed from there.
Rick, once again, Rick Pulaski at Nederveld, planner and engineer for Tommy's. And this is, as you can see, site plan review, special exception use request, 438 Wilson for Tommy's, and got a couple representatives from Tommy's here tonight as well, and they'll be able to answer any questions that I'm unable to answer. Tricia, if you don't mind, if you could go right to a site plan. I think you're all pretty familiar with this area. Obviously right off from Wilson. If you're familiar with hey, there we go. Fantastic. But back a few years ago, the folks at Tommy's got a team together, their family that had been in the car wash business for a long time. And they wanted to, in a sense, create a model car wash, something that had a little bit more pizzazz to it than most of the soft cloth automatic car washes that you see. Predominantly, most of them that have, been in use through the years have been just, a slab side of CMU concrete masonry units, maybe painted brown or gray or whatever. Had an opening here and an opening there. You go in, you come out. But they wanted to bring something together that had a little bit better theme, had a little bit more fun factor to it, so to speak. And so they created the Tommy's model after Tommy Westenburg. Yeah, it's actually, so I'm Alex Lemon, one of the owners here. Yep. Tommy was actually after Tommy Bahama. Okay. And Tommy Hilfiger created a designer, more retail, better looking, better precision car wash. Yep. And you've probably used these. I've got the Tommy's app on my phone. I get the super. Haven't quite sprung for the full out deluxe one, so I get the number 3 super, $24.99 a month, by the way. But they, they put that together. They brought their team together, and this has been a very successful model for them all across Michigan, and now even going into other states as far away as Colorado, maybe even further. But that's the one that I'm aware of. So it's been a very successful model. They've done a good job with it. They're a very successful business, and they go into a site and they study them carefully as to, what the traffic counts are and can it be successful, and housetops, everything else. And, this is one of their sites that they said, okay, this looks like one that can work for us, and we're not in the city of Walker area right now. And we think that we could be successful there. So that's the reason that they're here tonight. As you see, our main entrance comes in off the north side of the site right there for an in and an out. And I don't have the ability to move cursors around, but. Okay, okay. No, but maybe if you could. Okay, I can grab your mouse, something like that.
Yeah, so thanks for your time. I'll be brief. I just wanted to explain a little bit more about our company. We were founded by my business partner's grandpa in 1969 in Holland, Michigan, under the Quality Car Wash brand, if you know it. Our stores that we own are becoming more rare. We have several in the West Michigan area. There's 70 locations nationwide owned by franchisees. We're committed to developing West Michigan still as a locally owned and operated by our own family. And these are flagship facilities. So they bring a lot to your city. We tour people from well over 20 countries through our facilities every year that are looking at developing car washes globally. We use them as training facilities. So it brings a lot of attention and interest to your city and people that need to eat lunch at Stan's Tacos, which we'll need that patio for. But I just wanted to explain some context that these projects are owned by us, the local company, the franchisor, and they're very important to us on a global perspective. And so would love the opportunity to be a good neighbor, a good business for you to use, but bring some more visibility to the city of Walker. Maybe for some of you, that's a good thing. For some of you, it's bad. I hate driving behind people who are out of town, but we do think it boosts the economic activity in the area. So just wanted to add that as context too, before we get into details. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. So this is the, obviously the north side of the site coming in off from M11 Wilson Avenue. This is an existing driveway entrance right now. Even though it's existing, we still need to get MDOT approval to use it. And we also need planning commission approval to do so as well. Going to come back to that in just a second, but let's kind of walk through it. So you come in here, you make the turn, and then you have the option of going to one of the two key components of a Tommy's Car Wash. One is obviously the car wash, and that's coming down here. And we've got a nice wide lane to be able to get ultimately 3 stacks or 3 queuing lines of cars, vehicles in line waiting to get a car wash. And the queuing and the stacking is very important so that we can keep all of the cars that want to get into the car wash into this area and not bleed out any further than right here. Once you get to right about this point here, you have the option of going and paying for a car wash with the cashier. These other 2 lines right here, those are for people that have the app, and the little camera recognizes you and opens up the gate and lets you through. So it's efficient. It moves vehicles along fairly quickly, gets them into this line then. This line is the line up to get into the car wash entrance. And incidentally, there's always like an oops lane in case that you're really not supposed to be here for some reason. You could exit out here. Sometimes they put them elsewhere, but in this case, you could exit out here if you need to. You get into the car wash, you go through the car wash, and you exit out here. And we're showing that we want to have a right out so that you can come over to here and then get out. Alternatively, you can also go into this site. This side of the site is their vacuum component. Just clean out your car, do a little bit of detailing that you might want to do to it. So this side of the site is the vacuuming component. We understand that up here is a couple of residences, and so we've got some buffering in place, both from a spatial standpoint, but also from a landscaping standpoint, just to buffer them away from the site. Not everybody wants to look at the vacuums, I get that, but the vacuums themselves, once again, are part of that whole integrated theme architecturally of the Tommy's Car Wash experience. So it's a cool look. It's a neat look. I think most of you are familiar with it. What we don't want to have happen is we don't want to mix these two. So queuing for the car wash can't mix with people wanting to get in and out for their vacuuming. The reason for that is, as you can imagine, is if there's a long queue line right here, and you're trying to get into a vacuum spot or trying to pull out of a vacuum spot, and there's a three queue car stack length right there, that's going to be pretty difficult to get through. So we do keep those separate for that reason. That comes into play because there was a question of, well, should these be flipped? And the question is, or the issue is, if we do flip this, if we move vacuums down to the south side and put our queuing up to the north side, we lose the ability to queue as many cars. And that's the main thrust of this. So from a safety standpoint, and just from an operation standpoint, getting as much cars to stack down here as possible is our main goal. It keeps them away from this area, and works a lot better operationally overall. This dumpster, Scott Connors, your engineer, was not too impressed with the ability to get in and out of it. So we talked with him. We'll angle that differently so that he's good with that. I think that's kind of a easy loose end to tie up. The other one, going back to this entrance, Scott mentioned in his memo to you that he might, or you might want to see MDOT weigh in on it first. That's fine. We don't think that they're going to take a curb cut away. We also don't think that they are going to suggest a curb cut closer to this curb cut down here. But they might have us configure it a little bit differently. So we get that. We're willing to go with whatever they say to do on that. Certainly one of those things that we have to eventually attack anyway. And if you guys want to see it sooner rather than later, we understand that. The other issue was the proximity of the vacuums and the residences up here. And again, just from our standpoint, that's actually the less intense use of the site is keeping the cars here, which you'll see less traffic here getting into the vacuums than you will down here. So we'd like to keep that right where it's at. And then giving us this extra length down here, coming down and around, that gives us the ability to stack more cars. And that's important to us as well. Not a whole lot of reconfiguring that we can do that works from an operation standpoint. We can talk about maybe moving some vacuums or maybe adding a little bit of landscape buffering. I think the city of Grand Rapids has an easement that zips through here going east and west that we might need to work around a little bit. We've got some late incoming news from them on that. But even that, even if we have to knock out a couple of vacuums, that would be something that we'd be willing to do. But the general configuration, even if you end up tabling us tonight, we'd want to know that you're okay with the general configuration so that we can start moving forward on some of those details that both Tricia and Scott mentioned in their reports.
Okay, thank you. Any questions at this point for the applicant?
Could you explain the buffer again that you have between the vacuums and the residential? You didn't really, I was just kind of curious as to what you're talking. There you go. There's some better picture there.
Yeah, so we've got a landscape plan that our landscape architect team put together, just trying to fill that area in, fairly densely with some decent trees and shrubs and vegetation, just to give that visual buffer between those existing homes and the vacuum areas.
Who owns the fence there along that line? I mean, it's kind of a partial fence in some parts of it.
Yeah, I looked at that too. Again, I don't know if you have the ability to maybe do a Google image on that or even a Kent GIS parcel viewer image on that, Tricia. I believe that that's their fences and we don't plan to do anything with them. Is that correct? Other than enhance them if necessary?
Okay, join you. I'm Maggie
Yeah.
Wyman with Tommy Car Wash Systems, Tommy's Express. We are willing to reconcile that fence and recreate it if needed. It is in a bit of a shambled condition right now, so we are more than happy to do that. In addition to that, we can put a fence behind our vacuums that would be closer to the car wash facility. So that's fairly similar to what it looks like today. I drove by just before this meeting. But we'd be more than happy to do that, and we would rebuild a solid 6-foot wood fence in place, either wood or vinyl, something that would appease what your ordinance requires.
Yeah, a couple details to add on the vacuums. They're 42 feet off the property line. And we do noise studies. A lot of cities ask about this. It's something traditional car washes have really struggled with. We use a different vacuum technology. A lot of car washes you might be familiar with, they have, I'll spare you some details, but they have a semi-central system that can't be turned off. It's always sucking. And if a customer leaves the hose out, it's making noise. Ours don't do that. They have an auto shut off, a time limit. We also have the ability to turn them off all evening. We staff, it's a required position, what we call a vac concierge, someone who walks the vac parking lot every hour, actually twice an hour, making sure no trash is overflowing, putting nozzles back in their holsters in case there would be any leaking noise. So really controlled vacuum environment at a lower sound rating than most car washes in the country is something that we've been able to achieve. So if you look at the decibel measurement, I think it's on the same category as like a busy front of a busy office of people coming in and out, cars pulling in and out. So that's something we've worked really hard on over the years, 50 years we've been designing and building these systems. But I agree the fence needs it's seen better days. So we can help with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was thinking also the lighting, like people pull into the vacuum and their lights from their car will shine right into that residential area. So if it's buffered good with a fence, that'll
Okay. Tricia, we can turn to you for kind of an overview on planning review.
So, as you know, Steve Witte was working with us from Nederveld and Associates, was working with us on this particular site plan, and Rick here is in his place. His son is graduating tonight, so obviously he wanted to be there for that. So again, this is a site plan review, and the action requested by the Planning Commission tonight is to review the site plan and the special exception use request for a 4,515 square foot car wash facility and related improvements, and to provide an approval with or without conditions, denial, or tabling of the request. And this is at 438 Wilson. The lot size is 1.23 acres. The zoning district is SDD, Standale Downtown. And the future land use designation for this site is mixed use. And it's within the neighborhood corridor community character designation within the Standale neighborhood cluster. And general location of the project site is on the east side of Wilson Avenue, just north of the Wilson Avenue and Lake Michigan Drive intersection. And again, we had Steve Witte, who was working with us, and Rick Pulaski in his place. So just a little bit of background on the site itself. Well, first, I might as well elaborate on what I found, which doesn't compare to the information that you provided. But from just a regular person standpoint, Tommy's Express is a national car wash chain. But after hearing you talk, it sounds like it's a Michigan car wash chain?
Yeah, founded in Holland in 1969.
Okay.
Grown ever since. So
But locations only in Michigan?
corporate owned only in Michigan.
Okay.
So we sell the wash package
help people open one of these nationwide. But
Gotcha.
We own and operate, myself and the Westenburg family, we own and operate the West Michigan stores.
Okay.
Plan to keep it that way.
Okay, gotcha. So you probably already know this, but it's a tunnel type car wash facility that also offers vacuums. And from what I could tell, there was approximately 16 existing Tommy's Express locations in the greater Grand Rapids area. And so background on this particular site, you guys have seen this site before. It's within the Standale downtown district. It's right on the edge. And this is formerly the site where that Ralph's grocery store was located. And when that was torn down, when the property was proposed for redevelopment for the Walgreens site. And so when Walgreens was developed, this outlot was created, and driveways and utilities and access management was in place for future development. So here's the zoning and the general location. As you can see, this is right on the edge of the Standale downtown district. And it borders single family residential, and it's on one of the primary frontage areas within the Standale downtown district. And going back to that access management plan, you guys have seen this before when we had a proposal for an O'Reilly's Auto Parts store. When they were proposing to put the parking in front to keep it in line with the existing Walgreens. And so I think at that time that was acceptable because this lot had been created before the Standale downtown district was adopted. And also at that time, these traffic movements were planned. This was converted into a right-in, right-out. And this also provides a shared access to the site where the Ralph's building was formerly. This access point is still here. The plan back then was to keep all movements, and to keep in mind that this was before all of the Westtown development. This was in 2008. So back then, it probably made a lot of sense to keep this as a full service drive, but as Scott mentioned in his report, and as Rick mentioned, it might be time to revisit that with MDOT just to see what their take is on that drive approach there. And so this access is still there. Back then, it says to formalize service drive to Faircrest. I don't think that's ever been formalized in terms of an actual recorded shared access easement and agreement. And so this obviously provides access to Faircrest, which also gives access to these strip developments over here. In terms of the land use, obviously it's a car wash that's being proposed, and in the Standale downtown district, a car wash use is permitted in primary frontage areas, subject to special exception use by the Planning Commission. And the special exception use approval requires that all standards found in section 94-250 are met in order for it to be issued. And we went through the special exception use standards with the Stan's Tacos. In this case, I have got a little bit more stuff to talk about. So I'm just going to go through each of those standards and provide you with my comments on the plan and what's being proposed in terms of how it relates to the standards. So the first one being no detriment, and the full standard states that the establishment, maintenance, location, or operation of the use will not be detrimental to or endanger the public. And so with this one, I feel that this standard may be met if we can get some additional information from MDOT regarding that northern full service driveway. So they'll take another look at that and decide whether or not modifications would be warranted. It should be noted that if that full service driveway goes away, I think that would significantly impact access to Faircrest and accessing some of the businesses behind this site or to the east of this site. Oops, let me go back. The next one being, is the use compatible with the zoning district? So the zoning district is Standale Downtown District. Is it compatible with the intent of the zoning district and will it will not change the essential character of the surrounding area? So with this one, my comment is that not all lots that are within the Standale Downtown District are created equal. They are all designated as primary frontage areas, secondary frontage areas, or neighborhood frontage areas. They all have the same zoning district, but they have separate frontage areas. And so it's my opinion that the intent of this particular use being deemed a special exception use is because of that. And to allow the planning commission to have case by case review of uses like this that may be a little bit more intense or not necessarily 100% compatible with adjacent uses. And so because of this, I think that this standard at this with the layout that's proposed is not met. And we'll get into we will get into other reasons for how the use could change the essential character of the surrounding area. The third one is that the use will not impair or diminish property values and no adverse impact on the environment. So the full reading of that standard is the use will not be injurious to the use or enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes permitted, will not substantially diminish or impair property values within the area, and will not result in any significant adverse impact on the natural environment. So this one is a little bit hard to get around. From my perspective, I don't believe that the standard can be met with the current layout of the site and with some of the uses themselves. The applicant, and this is mainly based on noise. Obviously, the vacuums emit a certain amount of noise. The tunnel, as you're exiting the tunnel, that creates a significant amount of noise. They provided us with a noise study that was conducted at the Hudsonville location. And, you know, based on some of the decibel levels from the vacuums where there's not the same buffer that would be at this particular site with what's being proposed in the landscape plan. The decibel levels exceed what would be deemed acceptable per our noise ordinance. And with the site layout, the vacuums are within close proximity to those homes. So the plan that was submitted shows the vacuums at 37 feet from the adjacent residential zoning district. And our noise ordinance indicates decibel limits not to exceed 71 in any receiving land use category. So the receiving land use category is, okay, I'm in the residential district and I'm the receiver of this noise coming from whatever other zoning district. So from a residential perspective, 71, according to the noise study, where it provided some comparables in terms of sounds that we're accustomed to hearing. So that would be categorized as loud. So shouting at 1 meter or a busy office, as was mentioned. So Then there's lighting. We haven't seen a lighting or photometric plan. One was a sample lighting plan was provided, but obviously we need one that is specific to the site so that we could ensure that lighting is obviously not spilling over onto the neighboring properties. But it's, like I said, it's gonna be very hard to get around the noise issue. And that's kind of where the incompatibility comes in. And from a perspective of, living in a residential zoning district, there's a little park kind of right behind my house, and there's a little parking lot there. And sometimes at night, people park and talk, and it's probably from here to, I don't know, that corner away from where my bed is. And I can hear it so clearly, and I'm just laying in bed and the windows are open, and I'm just like, what are those people doing in this little parking lot? It's 10 o'clock at night. So just talking is, I would guess I would consider myself a reasonable person. And the noise ordinance, in terms of nuisance, classifies any noises, odors, glares that are annoying or cause discomfort to a reasonable person, is deemed a nuisance. And so, like I said, I don't believe that the standard has been met with the current layout. I'm not sure if there is a layout that would achieve meeting this standard. But going back to the list of standards, the next one being the use will not impede on the normal orderly development and improvement of surrounding property. And so the full standard reads adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary services or facilities have been or will be provided such that the use will not place demands on public services or facilities in excess of capacity. So this one is pretty easy. All of the infrastructure is there for utilities, and so this standard is met. There's also access from the shared entrance and exit from the Walgreens site and the existing full service drive in the northernmost portion of the property. The next one being adequate utilities exist. Well, what happened here? I'm linking to the same. So much for trying to use links in my PowerPoint presentation. Okay, this is what I meant. This is what I meant for the fourth one. The establishment, maintenance, location, or operation of the use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding property for uses permitted in that district. So again, the site layout, there's some challenges with the traffic circulation. We have not seen a plan that shows maneuverability. We've not seen a plan that shows stacking, and the parking indicates, or the parking section that is within the general notes indicates that there's space for 30 cars to stack. And so it would be nice to be able to see where those cars are planned to be stacked. When you look at the plan, it looks like they could go in any number of places depending on where they enter the site. So again, a vehicle turning template is needed to ensure tight movements are possible. And there's also the issue with the dumpster, and the city engineer has indicated that there are some issues with a garbage truck being able to come in and access that dumpster. It's pretty tight. So with that said, I believe that this standard may be met. There's some modifications, or there's some things that could be added to the plan, some additional information that could allow that standard to be met. And use conforms to all applicable zoning regulations and laws. I feel like this standard may be met. Well, I'll just go through the full reading of this standard. The use will, in all other respects, conform to the applicable regulations of the zoning district in which it is located, conditions imposed on approval, and all other applicable provisions of law, ordinance, or statute. So these are kind of the site plan review section elements that should be on the plan, and they should comply with the requirements of the zoning ordinance. So one of the issues here is that, and we've seen this before with the O'Reilly site, where the parking numbers that are prescribed in the parking and the parking and off-street parking and loading section of the zoning ordinance. That's the maximum parking numbers that are allowed in the Standale downtown district. And so you're allowed to have a 10% increase over what's approved per that, or over what's prescribed in that section. But there has to be some evidence that supports that. And one might say that maybe our zoning ordinance is a little bit dated when it comes to addressing car washes as a use. I don't really think that it accounts for vacuum spaces. It says that one space for each tunnel and each employee plus 10 stacking spaces. I think it was obviously written before the car wash industry decided, hey, we could have 3 or 4 pay lanes here and circulate a lot more cars through here. So, you know, that one might be tough to decide whether or not it's being met, because I don't think the vacuum spaces are counted. So parking is maybe an issue here. Again, the lighting and photometric plan, that's one of the items that we require for site plan review, and that was not provided. Apparently they have a specific company that does their lighting, and it takes a long time for them to get their lighting and photometrics and that layout all squared away. So they weren't able to get that in time for tonight's meeting. And the last one is that the location of the vacuum, and you read this in Scott's report, that the vacuum location on the northern end is proposed within a utility easement. And we have some correspondence from Arden Postma from the city of Grand Rapids, who indicates that it's probably not okay. But it's my understanding there's some old easement language that needs to be gone through. But, you know, before spending a whole lot of time on something like that, the Planning Commission should really focus on the use itself. And if the use is acceptable, then we can probably get more information about the location of the vacuums and whether or not they can be located in that easement. And so as far as a recommendation goes, I have a really hard time recommending that the Planning Commission approve the site plan, but I think there's a couple options here, depending on whether or not they feel that the applicant can provide more information that would lead you to believe that all of the special land use or the special exception use standards can be met. So it's recommended that the Planning Commission choose one of the 2 actions concerning the request for special exception use and site plan approval for a car wash facility at 438 Wilson Avenue Northwest for Tommy's Express. So one option would be if the Planning Commission finds that the applicant may be able to provide additional information that would satisfy the above special exception use standards determined by staff to either be not met or may be met, tabling any action would be appropriate. Or number 2, if the Planning Commission finds it would not be possible for all 6 standards of special exception use approval to be met, given the challenges with noise associated with vacuum bays, among other things, it is recommended that the item be denied. And I can go through some of Scott's items. He doesn't have anything vastly different than what I mentioned. Other than they recommend that a cross-access easement be recorded as shown prior to the issuance of building permits. In terms of, there's a couple notes on the plan that point to easements being possible locations. And so that obviously has to get squared away. And he indicates that the northernmost driveway to Wilson is being used as a full service driveway. And it was our police department that weighed in to say he feels that this full service driveway is really dangerous. And so he indicates that that would be something that MDOT would need to weigh in on. He also indicates that a truck turning template should be provided for the dumpster area. And vacuum stations within the public utility easement would typically be forbidden. And he mentions that the above ground structures along with underground electric conduit to power the stations could be a problem. And he also indicates that the north vacuum aisle is very close to the adjacent residential property, and the homes have windows approximately 5 to 6 feet from the property line, and that a rudimentary sampling would suggest that the vacuum noise would be audible at that distance.
All right, thank you, Tricia. Any comments, questions for Tricia at this point, either with regard to the planning portion of it? And if you had any concerns about the engineering or concerns or questions?
I thought she summed it up very well with the detail, and I hadn't looked into this at all, and it doesn't quite fit, does it? I mean, you know, what we had for that area, and, you know, I can see where there's some problems here. I agree.
I would suggest we open the public hearing. I'll make a motion for that.
Motion by Tyler, supported by Jason to open the public hearing. All those in opposition to that? Okay, public hearing is open. Anyone in the audience or no one online? Oh, we have one online. They wish to offer a comment?
Mandy, if you would like to talk, lower part of your screen, you have a hand that you can raise. Now let me know.
She's one of the other owners.
Oh, okay.
Mandy.
Well, she's asking to talk. Oh, you can talk, Mandy.
Okay, I just wanted to say thank you. Sorry I can't be there in person. I am homesick tonight, but I just want to say thank you for considering this project, and we would be a great neighbor. And I think many of those concerns, the lighting and things like that, we can work through the details. We do feel the fence and the trees and the landscape, and maybe even looking at like a berm or a hill option would help with the vacuum noise. They all are also are only from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. We close at 9 and they do not run during the night. So that may help as well.
Thank you.
Can I add a couple of comments without appropriate?
Certainly.
Okay. Not trying to delay your evening, but we're very passionate about this, as you can tell. I got nervous for a minute. Steve was making all the motions to approve things and stepped out. So I was very nervous, but all concerns very valid and well heard. I do think being transparent with the group here, we can, as far as the turn radius and stacking, we can provide a lot of that data. Photometrics as well. We've never had a problem meeting. Our lights are turned off all through the evening. There was a comment in there about impact to the environment. I just want to make you aware too, a lot of car washes, including one
on Lake Michigan, don't recycle any water. There are a lot of problems with them. We use about 24 gallons per car of fresh water. Most people washing at home use 100. And on Lake Michigan there, the number's probably close to that. So we're very environmentally friendly. We're willing to do a double fence, one behind our vacuums, and pay to fix the one by those homes. I'd also consider the opportunity to present some other creative ideas if this group was open to it. The receiving property was deemed those couple of homes as well. We could talk about, I don't know if there's some type of deal that we could work out with those folks. Layout was discussed. That's something we could take a second look at as well if you're open to it, but we'd appreciate some transparency back too, if those are things that you would be willing to consider if you think would be a good neighbor and good for the city, so we can we'll make progress on revisions. So thanks for your input. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I don't think there's any more public comment, so I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion by Tyler, supported by Jason to close the public hearing. Unless there's no one in opposition. Public hearing is closed. Time for talking.
I'll go first.
Okay,
Oh, you beat me to it.
Oh, go ahead, Tom. April 14th. Go ahead.
No, I was just to say, I've had some recent experience with the city of Grand Rapids on easements, and you start talking about building berms and planting trees over the top of the water main, they don't take that very well. And their language easement says whatever they tear up to fix their water main, they're not gonna fix it. So I agreed to the easement language because it was a temporary easement, but a permanent language was on property that I was representing. I would not have signed that agreement because, you know, you can't come in and tear up to repair your water main and then expect me to put everything back together. But my opinion, as long as we're going to start, I guess we'll start on this and go that way. This is far too intensive up against those homes. I know Steve Witte said the car wash on Lake Michigan Drive is closer, but those are new residents over there, apartments. When there was here before here, there was a couple of older homes there and they've been demolished. And now we have I can't think of the name of it, West something over there. I think this is far too intense use for up against residential, and the congestion on Wilson, your stacking looks suspect. It's just 5 pounds of sugar in a 10 pounds of sugar in an 8-pound bag. So I'll end it with that.
All right. I guess for me, I would agree with a lot of what Tom said. I think there's not enough information provided for me to approve. For instance, there's no photometrics. There's no, I'm sure there's other things that need to be provided that haven't been provided yet. If they were willing to provide more detail, it'd be something maybe we could revisit, but right now, as presented, I couldn't approve.
I have nothing against car washes. I use them all the time. So I'm not a car wash snob, but there's just too many open ends here. The in out of the North Drive is 450 feet from the center of the drive to the first crosswalk at the main intersection. That's not very far. I go out that way a lot. I'm stopping back that far a lot. And if that drive was to go right in, right out, then you're dumping all your traffic back onto Faircrest to get out if they want to go south on Wilson. And boy, that's a lot through that little neighborhood, especially on a sunny day, because you're stacking cars in there one after the other through the car wash. I'd be in the line. So that's an issue. The noise issue at 72 decibels at the landline there next to the houses. I tell you, if I was in those houses, I don't care how many trees you put up or anything, you're still gonna hear it, especially on a clear, cool night. When there's not humidity or there's not wind, you're gonna hear it. And I don't know how much money you want to throw at redesigning this, is my opinion, because I don't know that I can approve it with the noise, and it's up against residential. I'm sorry, it's just what we do. It's up against the residential, and even for the guy out on the corner of Faircrest, there's not gonna be any buffering between him and the vacuums. Is all gonna be on the north side, so he's gonna hear them, the guy across the street on Faircrest, so I'm pretty much no.
Again, the noise factor is a major concern. The information that was provided, it would suggest that it's at that point where it is in conflict with the ordinance standards. The information that was provided with the application spoke of a comparison to a facility in Hudsonville. It didn't really speak to, okay, you've got these sound levels that are associated with this, not only with vacuums, but also with the exit points out of the tunnel wash, where there's some high numbers there as well. And don't have a real good sense the extent to which there would be, that could be diminished, given that the distance that we're talking about here. Plant materials sounds good, but its impact, if any, on being able to diminish the sound is a concern. Yeah, in terms of at the peak time, as you're having good activity at the car wash, how many cars are processed within a, I don't know, 20-minute period of time?
Yeah, this site would do at a peak time about 160 cars per hour, which is about 3 times as fast as most car washes that you would see if there was demand for it. So that's actually allowed us in a lot of cities to gain approval where they thought a typical car wash would have a stacking issue because our processing capability is so much higher. Actually, the world record facilities in Holland, Michigan, it's a store we own where we wash 220 cars an hour. It's a bigger facility, and that's the one that's widely toured. And so, and we do that frequently on a busy day with no stacking problems, if anyone wanted to take a look.
Now, you mentioned the Holland store, in terms of the size of the facility, how does that compare size-wise?
Yeah, this one's a 110-foot building. The one in Holland's 130, but it also has gas pumps and a C-store attached, which actually creates more challenges in terms of the site layout. Nationwide, we're building now only this express wash model because it is less congestion. It's a more efficient machine. And again, that's something we've become good at. The building design is part of and how it lays out, part of our ability to do that, which a lot of car washes in the industry have struggled with. So it's a special thing of a Tommy's Express, being able to process cars that fast and alleviate traffic concerns.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
In terms of, the site circulation, I think that MDOT information is vital in this case. If you're at this point, we're assuming that existing drive will continue to be full service. I think it's in the interest of the applicant as well as the city to know just where that's going to fall in terms of the MDOT review. And as a special exception review, meeting those standards is really important in order to make a decision on whether or not to approve or deny. And we just don't have enough information there on that aspect of it. Turn it over to Jason.
So some of the comments I agree with, that right now we're not in a position where we could do much with this. There's too many unknowns and or some flags that we can't get past. In full disclosure, I do think that you could reconfigure this. From my perspective, I think it can work, but it would just take kind of a flip-flop. I think you're going to have to put the vacuums on the south side and the building closer to the north. And then obviously we would need to have some noise studies that would go along with that and to show some of the circulation path. having built car washes before, the vacuums don't tend to be as much of the noise as the radios when people pull up to these. And it's crazy. And these guys, I've not worked with them, full disclosure. The car wash people have done a good job at making sure to try to handle that by putting somebody on the vacuums to contain that. But I think all that helps by having it kind of on the south side. And then I agree with what Terry was saying. You really need to find out the MDOT stuff, because if they essentially shut down part of this intersection, you have no, or this way in and out, you really have no way to move that kind of car load. And then it doesn't work, and there's just no way we can get anywhere with it. I do like the buffering in terms of the landscaping along there, and I think that helps from the perspective of, you know, headlights moving in and out and those kinds of things. Will it do a lot with sound? It'll help, but not that much, and that's why I think trying to put some of the other activities on the south side makes a difference. So for me, I'll put it back in your court, you know, prove that you can make it with all these things, and then I can see a viable project. But it's your burden to prove that to us. And that's how I would get by it, by just going down the list and making sure.
Great. So I guess first thing I want to say is that appreciate you guys being here, and you seem like a really good group and everything. I like the concept. I'm familiar with the Holland location. I do a lot of my day job over in Ottawa County, so I've seen a number of your spots, and I think it's a good thing. And what I would say is that for my part, if you guys were on a different site with the exact same project, I think this would be a lot easier review for all of us. Because the huge concern obviously is the proximity to that residential, and how do you make sure that you're not having that external impact on those folks who've been there who knows how long and had a certain expectation of the intensity of the use that was going to be there. So I guess going down the list of our checklist here, on the first item, detrimental to the public in terms of the movements and things like that with the full service driveway, I think that's an MDOT issue. I get what our deputy chief had brought up with his concerns, but as far as I'm concerned, if MDOT were okay with a full service driveway, I wouldn't have concerns with a full service driveway there. And I'm sure their burden of proof will be plenty. As far as the essential character of the surrounding area, the proximity to the residential is the big issue. I think there's things you can do with buffering, landscaping, the things you've mentioned with the fences. I know you guys briefly mentioned berming. I think there is a way to get there. And I think a lot of what Jason has said is true, that with all of these concerns, I think there's a way to get there, but I think also what Tyler said is true. How much do you want to put into retrofitting this site to get to that point? And I think it will be a high burden from our perspective, just because we are very sensitive to the spot where you're trying to develop. In terms of the third item, noise, proximity, lighting, those issues were brought up. As far as the noise point, if you can get under the standards in our ordinance, then I don't see any issue, but we would need, I guess, the burden of proof to show that your site would not have that level of noise at the property line. And that's kind of where we set that standard. But for my part, I'm open to creative solutions on it. And I think that would go for all of this. But again, you guys kind of come with a set model of how you plan to put this in. And I know it can be hard to retrofit those things and tailor them in the way that we would kind of need. Other than that, in terms of the zoning conformity and the location of the vacuums, the easements, all those things, I think that's a problem you all would have to work through. And I think if you can get the approvals as needed through those who hold those easements, that that would be on you guys more so than anything that we would have to deal with, right? But I guess that's kind of my perspective, and like Jason said, it's kind of you guys, balls in you guys' court as far as whether or not you would be willing to do that. I personally would be willing to table, but with the understanding to all of you that those burdens of proof to get to that point are going to be a high standard for our part.
Yep, I agree with that, I'm willing to table this if you can prove that you can meet the numbers that we need. And again, to Jason's point, can we flip flop this site? Do we need all the vacuums on the one side? Can we reduce the amount of vacuums? I mean, those are all things that you guys consider. I know you have a model that you use, so I understand that. Same thing with the exit. As we all know, that's one of the loudest spots. I mean, can you keep that more indoors versus, but then again, it's your building. So it's just the noise. That's the big thing. I think the building's a great looking building for that area, for the, downtown district. I think it's really nice looking. So it would complement it. It's just that noise.
One of the things that I thought in particular that Tyler brought out is that a lot of our focus has been on immediately to the north. But the residential area, especially to the northeast, is also a concern. So as you would bring the tunnel wash further to the north, that may bring that more at issue again by so doing. So hopefully we're giving you a good idea as far as what our concerns are. And at this point, it's a decision for us to got a couple of options here this evening. Recommended tabling is one option, or in the worst case scenario is the case where we just don't think it's going to be able to be rectified to address all the standards. And to that end, any discussion about that or a motion that would anyone's ready to offer?
I guess I would ask some of our folks maybe on the left side of the rostrum here what the
left.
what the openness is to tabling, because I heard some pretty concerned positions. But if we're good with tabling, and I think you guys are clear on kind of where that would be coming from, then I wouldn't have any issue giving the motion to table. But I don't know if there's
I'm
like.
open to tabling, but be aware that there's a high bar here that you're gonna have to meet to get approval. I mean, it's a nice project. It's a nice looking facility, but I don't think this is the location for it. Again, they've got the residential to there. Yeah, it's in the commercial area, but I have a little struggle with that. If they had that thing up there and it said whether you wanted to get a cross access for Faircrest to Wilson. Yeah, that full service there is a drive is an issue. If you don't touch it, I don't think MDOT can say anything because you're not working in there right away, but we want to partner with MDOT. So we're gonna, it's a high standard you're gonna have to meet. So I'm willing to table, but that doesn't mean that I'm on the fence.
Yeah.
Ready to vote yes.
All right. I'm seeing a lot of nodding at the idea of tabling here. So.
I'm a no. It's
Okay.
just too intense for the site. I just think it's too intense for the site, so. Just being honest.
Yep. No,
I agree.
I don't take any issue with that either. I get it.
My position on the tabling is let them have the opportunity to prove it. I understand your position on that, Tyler, but that's where I'm at with the table part is that they have the opportunity to prove to us that they can meet all the standards, if they can. And that's acceptable. I do like the project.
Oh, I like the product. I don't have a problem with the product at all. So
Yeah,
I sound like I'm against car washes.
I think we're all saying very close to the same thing in different ways.
Well, in here again, I mean, I looked again, I forget where where I saw it here, but you got a sanitary sewer in there, you got a water main in those easements.
those easements
So
are gonna
when you're
be-
doing flip now, could I sit down here and probably come up with a design, but it's not gonna look from Wilson like your picture. I mean, if you did a north-south one, have them come out the south end, you put the vacuums up on against Wilson and the traffic noise. There's all kinds of things, but
Yeah,
when you
but
do,
you're just trying to put them in a position where they have to prove it and be done with it.
right, right.
Yeah.
There's just, as long as they're aware, you got all these things that you gotta convince us. It's not just one or two, there's a lot.
So I
I'll
guess
make
how
a motion.
specific do we have to be in a tabling motion?
Well, if you make a motion to table, then just make sure that you, state your findings. So findings not necessarily, related to the special exception use, but findings in that, there's not enough information, for you to approve. So one of the aspects being that, we need input from MDOT. We would need to, have them work on a different design or a different layout. So, I mean, you can table it and indicate that the applicant shall provide additional information to clarify or satisfy the special exception use standards and the,
Will be met, not maybe met.
right.
Go down that list of.
Just say the special exceptions will be met. That's all inclusive.
Okay. I'll probably add just a few little items, but,
Not you, come on.
just to clarify. But for case 21-016, I will make a motion to table the site plan dated 5/18/2021 and special exception use request for Tommy's Express Car Wash on the property located at 438 Wilson Drive Northwest. Based on the following findings, that we would be seeking additional clarification to meet all special exception use standards. That the concerns around the impact on the residential properties in proximity to this site would be addressed. That the additional details that have been requested from the project would be included. And those would include input from MDOT on the full service driveway, the photometric plan, potentially alternative layout, and any other issues that have been raised at the planning commission meeting here.
Support.
We have a motion by Steve, supported by Jason to table this request as he detailed it. Any question about that at this point? Okay, no question. Tricia, if you could call the roll, please.
Terry,
Yes.
Tyler,
No,
Pat,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
All right, as far as tabling goes, would you go to a date certain, or you want to leave that open and you'll renotice?
We should leave that open until such time that the applicant can provide a revised plan and additional information, and then we'll take a look at the deadlines that are listed in the application packet, and we can set a date, and we would have to renotice the public.
Okay. All right, you have any questions?
You got it.
you bet.
You got it. There's a
All right.
lot of vacant land over that way.
All right, thank you.
We can do a denial if you want. Go back to the boss, say, hey, that hard ass is over there, they denied it.
Tricia, anything as we look at the next meeting?
We have a couple site plans that are, we have a final plat or final preliminary plat. Summerbrook Estates, which was tabled, I think, back in March. And then we also have a residential condominium, Meadow Springs Phase 3. So we're working with them on that. And we also have, actually, that won't be until the July 7th meeting, but the 16th, we also have an industrial development that's submitted an application today. I haven't even had a chance to look at it, but it's on the older part of Northridge, in that Blanche plat. So I think it's a multi-tenant building.
Just an FYI, I won't be here for our next planning commission meeting.
Okay.
Not much vacant land in the black.
Yeah, this is one of the last pieces. We have another ad hoc committee meeting that I think is in the works of being scheduled. Right now, a poll went out to check everybody's availability for the Waterford Village folks who are trying to redesign their plan to meet some of the recommendations given by the city commission. Yeah, there's like a million other things going on, but as far as planning commission goes, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's not talk about the crash.
All right.
I'm going camping tomorrow, so I'll be out of the office. Just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, we got a motion to adjourn. Anybody opposed? Motion to pass. Thank you.
I want to roll it all.